reforms you put in place, reforms, the text of which we don't even have access to, reforms that you put in place. I've been on this committee for 13 years. During the entirety of those 13 years, I've expressed concerns to FBI directors appointed by presidents of both political parties in 3 different presidential administrations. Every darn one of them has told me the same thing. Don't worry about it. We've got this taken care of. We've got new procedures. It's going to be different now. It's never different. You haven't changed.
The stage is set in the Senate chamber, where Senator Mike Lee, with a demeanor marked by resolve and a hint of skepticism, begins a critical examination of the FBI's surveillance practices. Director Wray, seated and poised for the inquiry, faces questions that pierce the veil of FBI operations, particularly focusing on alleged abuses of surveillance tools against American citizens. Senator Lee's narrative is laden with examples that suggest a troubling misuse of authority, highlighting instances where personal vendettas might have overshadowed legal and ethical boundaries. This hearing transcends a mere procedural check. It's a spotlight on the balance between national security interests and the inviolable rights of individuals, a cornerstone of American democracy.
Thanks, Senator Coons. Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Wray, for being here. In a report issued declassified in August of 2021, the Director of National Intelligence stated, quote, FBI personnel conducted multiple queries of an individual who had the same last name as the FBI personnel conducting the query. And on further investigation, what they learned was that this query was made after this analyst at the FBI had a conversation with his own mother, and his mother expressed suspicions about his father having an affair, cheating on her, having an affair with another woman. And so as a result of that, they looked into it, and this particular analyst admitted that he ran the queries because of this tip from his mother that his dad was having an affair. And because I've got a lot of material to cover, I'd appreciate if you could give me a yes or no answer to this. Was that analyst terminated?
I'm not sure that I can recall the specific instance that you're talking about, so I'll have to go look at that and follow back up with you on that.
And do you know whether the analyst's security clearance would have been revoked?
Again, same answer, but let me check into that, and we'll circle back to whatever we can share.
Let me ask it to you this way, yes or no. Would abuse of Section 702 by an FBI employee, would that be something that would warrant the revocation of security clearance?
Well, certainly abuse. I think we'd have to know what the circumstances were. Sometimes people have used terms like abuse in this discussion when it's been something other than what I would call abuse, but that's why we have this accountability procedures that have cascading
This example that I've given you is abuse. I assume you would not disagree with that. Now, the September of 2023 PCLOB report disclosed 2 additional intentional incidents. Intentional wrong searches from 2022. One instance from 2022 in which 2 analysts conducted queries seeking information about a person who was a potential tenant of a rental property owned by one of the analysts. And another instance from 2022 in which an NSA analyst conducted queries on 2 occasions seeking information about 2 individuals that the analyst himself had met through an online dating service. Were the FBI employees who conducted those 2 illegal searches, were they terminated?
Well, you lost me there for a minute. You referred to an NSA analyst?
Yeah. So NSA analyst, do you know whether anyone at the NSA was disciplined for that? And if they worked at the FBI, would they be subject to discipline?
Well, I don't want to get into hypotheticals, but as far as NSA analysts, I think that would be a question for NSA.
Now, were FBI employees involved in those? And if they had been, would their security clearances have been terminated?
In a pivotal shift, Senator Lee scrutinizes the FBI's surveillance operations, pinpointing specific incidents where personal motivations might have corrupted the agency's power. He unveils cases of alleged surveillance misuse, intensifying the session's tone. The allegations of privacy invasion and personal vendettas by FBI analysts add a layer of controversy to the discussion. These revelations highlight a potential crisis within the FBI, questioning the integrity of its surveillance practices. Lee's focused interrogation underscores the gravity of these allegations, emphasizing their significance in the broader narrative of governmental oversight and civil liberties.
Who had, quote, complained to FBI about alleged civil rights violations perpetrated by a municipal chief of police, close quote. Were the FBI employees who conducted those illegal searches terminated, or did they have their security clearances stripped? Yes or no? Reforms that you've put in place. I've been on this committee for 13 years. During the entirety of those 13 years, I've expressed concerns to FBI directors appointed by presidents of both political parties and 3 different presidential administrations. Every darn one of them has told me the same thing. Don't worry about it. We've got this taken care of. We've got new procedures. It's going to be different now. It's never different. You haven't changed. And you keep referring to these policies, these new procedures. We haven't seen that. We're not even allowed to have access to it. And we have absolutely no reason to trust you because you haven't behaved in a manner that's trustworthy. You can't even, as we sit here, tell me that people who intentionally, knowingly, deliberately violated the civil rights of American citizens, that they were fired or that they had their security clearance stripped. Now, in 2022, FBI and other agencies searched Americans' communications over 200,000 times, only 16 of which were evidence of a crime-only searches that returned information. I'd like to ask you to give a yes or a no answer to these questions. Were the 3 related batch queries consisting of over 23,000 separate queries relating to the events of January 6th, were those evidence of a crime-only queries, yes or no?
I don't know the answer to that.
The answer is no. I do know the answer. The answer is no. Were there 141 queries for the activists arrested in connection with the George Floyd protests here in Washington, D.C., evidence of a crime-only queries?
Those were non-compliant queries, and again, they all predate the reforms that we've put in place, which
echo other reforms that other FBI directors have told me about every darn year. How about the 19,000 donors to a political campaign? The answer there is no. What about the query for a sitting member of Congress? The answer there is no. What about the query involving a U.S. Senator, which for all we know could be any one of us? The answer is no. And so what does that tell me? Well, what I'm hearing and what these data points all point to is that a warrant requirement or prohibition relating to quote-unquote evidence of a crime-only queries would not have been something that would have prevented any of the most egregious examples of the abuse that we've seen under Section 702. So the FBI is already required to obtain a court order in some circumstances before accessing the contents of Americans' communications in the context of 702. They're already required for that in some circumstances. Since 2018, how many times has that requirement been triggered according to government reporting? Do you know?
You're talking about the so-called F2?
Yes.
Yeah. How many times has it been triggered?
Yes.
I think there have been 2 instances where I think is maybe the number.
103 times it's been triggered. And out of those 103 identified times, the FBI should have obtained a court order. How many times did the FBI actually obtain one? Do you know?
As the hearing nears its conclusion, a cascade of unanswered questions and concerns remains in the air, painting a picture of potential overreach and misconduct within the FBI. The session's revelations invite a broader reflection on the delicate balance between national security and individual liberties, underscoring the need for stringent oversight of powerful government agencies. Senator Lee's persistent inquiries suggest a pressing need for further investigation and potential reform to ensure that surveillance powers are wielded judiciously and within constitutional bounds. The hearing ends, leaving an indelible mark on the audience, a stark reminder of the ongoing struggle to uphold justice, transparency, and accountability in the face of immense power.